the animosity that I felt for this individual grew 100 times more.
Ride Along Live.
You know, it took me a long time to come to the conclusion to do this video, first and foremost. It's actually about 15 years or so in the making, right? So it took me a long time to come to that place, the place where I could totally forgive someone. So because I went through the process of this 14 years and I've been holding on to this anger and hatred for these individuals in my heart, I had to just let it go and forgive them, because I believe that forgiving is not for the persons who you believe did you wrong, right? Forgiving is for yourself. It's really for you. So I had to get over that, right? It was a journey, but I had to get over it. So to this video, we're going to be calling some names. And rest assured that if in any of my articulation here today, I say anything that's inaccurate or call names that, or mention things that are false, rest assured that I'll be taken to court. Because the individuals that I'm going to be speaking about are so-called reputable individuals in our community that we all know. One of which is an attorney at law. So you know, understand, I have to be very accurate in terms of my articulation. You could imagine. The other one is a very prominent individual in the Grenadian circle. So let me start the story, guys. And this is my story. This is my recollection. And this is my opinion and my process. So let me start. Enough of the rambling. So guys, around 2008, 2008, around that time there, I believe, I had this idea, this grandiose idea, to bring a Grenada Carnival magazine, right? And you have to understand, at that point in time, there was no Facebook Live and all that stuff that we have now. 2008, it wasn't there like that, right? So I had this idea, I tossed it around a few of my friends, and they thought it was a great idea to bring a Grenada Carnival magazine. Now, I decided to bring it because I saw that there was a opportunity there, one, to promote Grenada Carnival, and knowing that so much foreigners came in from around the world, coming to Grenada, staying in various hotels, we need them to leave with something, right? And I thought the magazine was a great idea. So I went ahead and I made the presentation. I spoke to some of my friends and they thought it was a good idea. So I said, you know what, full force ahead. I hired a few people, designers, writers, a few, photographers, and, just a full team. And rest assured that it was expensive. The whole venture was expensive. Mm-hmm. I printed the magazine in Texas, right? And I remember that the magazine cost about $6,000 to put together and ship. That's $6,000 to put together and ship that magazine. So I decided I would start with 600 magazine, right? I accumulated the funds, I got a few sponsors and what have you, and I decided to go full force ahead. So during that time, it was the first NDC, it was the NDC of Tillman Thomas, I believe, was in power at the time. And the Minister of Culture at the time was Mr. Ali Gill, right? So I remember speaking to the then Prime Minister and I told him the idea. I even did a story in the magazine of Uncle Tilly, and Uncle Tilly even gave me a small donation towards the magazine. He thought it was a great idea as well. Full steam ahead, we started to put together the magazine. When the magazine was, idea was coming closer, I needed to get it shipped. I was convinced that, I would need assistance from the government. I would need for the government to give me some sort of subsidy or concessions, right, to bring in those magazines. So I remember calling the then Prime Minister and said, listen, I need help with this magazine. And and I need some concession on what's the process, because it's about promoting Grenada and stuff like that. The Prime Minister then told me to go to Mr. Ali Gill, who was, of course, the Minister of Culture. Now, let me stick a pin right there, because I had to take a deep breath at that time when he told me that, because I know at that point in time, I didn't have the best relationship with Ali Gill, because previously to Ali Gill becoming Minister of Culture, me and him had a major fallout. We had a problem. We had issues, right? The issues was Ali Gill, before he became the minister, he was a promoter and, well, I won't say promoter. He was a manager. He was managing Mr. Killer. Still as a lawyer, he was managing Mr. Killer. And Ali Gill approached me to do a music video for Mr. Killer, which I did. So if you guys saw the video, Gone Mad Again, Gone Mad Again, that was almost 2 decades ago, 14, 15 years ago. So I did that video as Mr. Ali Gill had prescribed. And, you know, he made an initial down payment towards it. And we did the video and we prepared and everything was done. My understanding our understanding was that after the video was concluded, I would get the second half of that down payment. So after the video concluded, I came back to Mr. Gill and I said to Mr. Ali Gill, well, listen, the video is done. Here's what it is. I think he opted to make some changes or whatever, which I believe that those changes was made. My best recollection was that those changes was made and it was time to, you know, finalize the transaction. I remember I was in Grenada at the time and I called Ali Gill and I told him, I said, well, I'm here. I'm at the carnage because I was going back the following day. And I said, you know, let's meet up so we could finalize the payment and stuff like that. I remember Ali Gill telling me that he would meet me at the carnage. I stood there on the carnage for about a good couple hours. I waited. I didn't hear from him. I called him from another phone and then he answered. And I was like, yo, I'm waiting for you here. He said, okay, meet me up in Grand Anse. My best recollection is that I left the carnage and I went to Grand Anse, where the attorney, Mr. Ali Gill, asked me to meet up with him. So went there again, call him. No answer from Mr. Ali Gill. So I left him some choice words on his cell phone. I wasn't nice at all. Sometimes I can't hold my tongue. I was very upset at the time. Because I'm saying, yo, we made an agreement to finish off this payment here for the video. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm here. I'm calling you. I'm not getting you. What is going on? He chose not to answer his phone. So I left some choice words on his voicemail, or I can't remember if I sent him a text or voicemail, but I corresponded some not so nice words to him, right? So I know when the then Prime Minister told me to go to Ali Gill, I know that there would be some issues there because I didn't have nothing nice to say when we last interacted. So fast track a bit, I still went and I sat with Mr. Gill and I told Mr. Gill, I said, listen, and I remember went into his office and he sat down like this and he watched me like this. I could have just felt the bad energy. It was a bad energy in the room. So anyway, I forgot all of that stuff and I went on to explain to him about the idea of the magazine and how great it is. And he was looking at me like this. In my best recollection, that was his posture, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm in a kind of compromised position, right? Because he has the authority and I'm asking the government for assistance for concession for this 500 magazine that I already spent $6,000 on to come down, asking for concession. I remember in my best recollection of the events, I was told that there's nothing that they could do to help me. So I'm like, damn, there's nothing you could do to help me, man? He said, nope, there's nothing that we could do to help you. All right, so the magazine is here. I had to go and figure out how I get the magazine out. I already spent the money. The magazine is at the port, right? Amerijet. That's where it was shipped. Went into Amerijet. And if you know how Amerijet thing work, you go and you fill out the documents and they show you, this is where the products are and stuff like that. Nice stack of magazines. I already had some orders, put aside, the hotel, this hotel one, this hotel one, that, and I made my arrangement already. So when I went there, and I hoping and I praying that they would take it easy on me at the port. I remember the guy at the port filling out the document, and he said, "Do you have a concession letter?" I said, "No, I don't have a concession letter." He go like, whoosh. And I know what that meant. That meant like, yo, it's gonna be expensive, right? Big package, $6,000 US, and you know they do the times this and times that. At the end of the day, after the man did the calculation, he told me that I had to pay 6,000 EC dollars to clear these magazines. 6,000. I was like, really and truly, and honestly to God, I didn't have the money. I already spent 6,000 US dollars, and I really did not have the extra money to clear the magazine. So I looked at the magazine, I looked at the guy, I said, is there anything that you could help me with? I specifically remember this guy because, funny enough, and later on in the story, I'm going to share how I recollected him particularly. I said, I don't have the money. I seriously don't have the money. He said, well, there's nothing he could do about it. You can't blame the guy. I looked at the magazine and I just, almost with tears in my eyes, Jed, almost with tears in my eyes, I just walked away. The guy called me, said, Mr. George, come. He said, just take a few magazines. Just take a couple magazines. I ended up dipping in one of the boxes because it was probably about 10 boxes. I just took a handful, probably about 15 magazines. And that's all I had. 15 magazines. And I walked away. I had to leave it. I couldn't pay for it. I wasn't getting concession. There was nothing I could have done. That was difficult for me, as you could imagine, right? At that time, and at any time, 6,000 US dollars is not like it's like 600 or $6. 6,000, right? I could have done a lot with that money, especially in 2008, 2009, somewhere around that time there. I walked away and I felt defeated and deflated, upset. But say what? That's life, right? I moved on. I survived. Almost. Well, I did actually. I forgot about the project. And the following year, that was the most disappointing thing. And that's what made me not have any good feeling towards Mr. Ali Gill. Not to say that the individual is a bad person. I knew him before. We had a okay relationship. We used to hang out and talk and, good little vibe. But I was so upset at that time. And what made me even more upset, and up to this day I had it in my heart and I had to let it go, was when I heard that the following year, in my best recollection of the events that happened, the Spice Mass Corporation was about to launch a magazine. That's the year after, That's the year after I had to let go my magazine. So in my head, I'm thinking, what? This is my concept. This was my concept, right? So I asked around a bit, and what I was hearing, to this date, I cannot independently verify, but I was told by a few people that the minister was involved in the creation of that magazine. That's what I was told. So I want a little understand what I was going through at that time. The animosity that I felt for this individual grew 100 times more, because now I felt that's the same man I sat and I told him my concept and I showed him the year before. He said he couldn't do nothing. And the following year, look, Spice Mass is now doing a magazine, say almost the same concept like what I did last year and lost money on. There's nothing I could have done about it. I just had to walk away. And Spice Mass magazine exists up to a day like today, I believe, in my opinion. And a lot of people don't understand the history behind the idea of this magazine. I say all of this to say that no matter if sometimes you feel people do you wrong, Jed, no matter sometimes if you feel people do you wrong, sometimes you have to, even if it takes you 2 decades to do so, you have to forgive them. In your eye, I recollect this event because a few weeks ago, I went into the port to clear one of my vehicles that came in. And one of the big men in the, when I say big men, one of the managers, some in big position, high position, reminded me of that magazine. And he said, "George, you don't remember me?" I said, "No, I don't really remember." He said, "Well, I was the man who told you to take a couple of those magazines." He remembered. And I had to give him a hug. I said, "Boy, that was the worst point, I could say, almost the worst point in my entire life, giving up that. But I still moved on and carried that hate in my heart that I felt. In between that time frame, guys, I felt that what Mr. Ali Gill and the government of the day could have done is assisted with the concept, right? And I also felt that they stole my idea. I honestly felt that my idea was compromised. That's my feeling. But I had to forgive these individuals. For many years during that time frame, I also had to deal with forgiving Mr. Colin Doe, who both of these individuals, Mr. Ali Gill and Mr. Colin Doe, I haven't had a conversation with since 2008. Because for some reason, right, it was said inside of the Spice Mass Corporation, and I don't know who said it, I don't know who put that there, but the idea was, and I remember walking up to Mr. Colin Doe while he was the CEO of Spice Mass, and Mr. Colin Doe, I was requesting a press credential from Mr. Colin Doe to go inside of Soca Monarch, right, as a media person, because before Ride Along, you guys know we had Time Plus, we had TCN, we had TCN Plus, so there was a progression. I didn't just jump into this game, there was a lot of history. All the streaming that you used to see before, that came from my platform, TCN, for those of you who remember, right? So I remember that walking into the Spice Mass Corporation, I think at that time they was in the stadium, somewhere in the stadium, and Mr. Colin Dow saying something to me. My best recollection of what he said was, "Don't do nothing until you tell me what to do." Something like that. I never could understand what he was saying, because I remember me and Hamlet Mark submitted our press credential at the same time. In fact, Hamlet Mark submitted his and he submitted mine. Hamlet Mark got his and I was declined, because there was some talk inside of the organization not to give me any press credentials, right? And for years, guys, the only way I got into Soca Monarch in Grenada as a press, a media person, the security personnel will tell you that to be a fact, is if a police officer say, "Hey, that's Junior George," and they'll let me in. Other than that, after 4 or 5 years of attempting and requesting and trying to and being told or not given press credentials, and I just stop asking or requesting media. And up to this day, I don't think I request media credentials last year. I don't think I was given media credentials last year. I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, oh yes, I did. I was given media credentials last year, because you guys remember when I was taking pictures, and then I got a message from the now CEO saying that I can't take pictures of the event. I say all of this to say, guys, that all of what me and Mr. Ali Gill and the animosity that I had in my heart for Mr. Colin Dow, I no longer have this emotion and this hatred that I had in my heart for them. I believe, in my humble belief, that these men did me wrong. I feel that way. But I had to go through a process of forgiving them so that I could move on. And I did. We cannot hold on to these things forever. So this was my story, guys. I never shared this story before, but I feel better now that I actually get that part out. A lot of times we never get a chance to speak about what's really on our mind, and I'm happy that I am in a position to do so that at least I could go forward. So to Mr. Ali Gill and to you, Mr. Colin Dow, I hold no animosity towards any one of you. We haven't spoken in 15 years or so. I hold no animosity against you or either one of you guys. I wish you all the best as you continue with or without saying anything to me or me saying anything to you. We both are going to be successful in whatever we're doing. We are not dependent on each other to reach any place or succeed or anything like that. Everybody is doing fine. I just had to say my piece.